Hi, this is Bits and Pieces, the official podcast of Component Supply. And today I am so privileged to have Steve Maxson from Chamfr with us today. Thanks, Steve, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we're switching it up a little bit because Steve is usually the one interviewing, everybody. You've done over 100 podcasts. You've interviewed engineers, suppliers, everybody. You've visited facilities.
Yes.
You've seen it all. But you don't get the opportunity to be interviewed. So it is my privilege today to deep dive into all things Steve Maxson.
Thank you. It might be a little awkward for me at first because I'm not used to that. I'm usually on the other side, like you said, but let's go for it.
Yeah, you got to get your bearings here.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start simply because we've had the opportunity for Component Supply to be interviewed by you on just, basic component kinds of things. But I actually know very little about your history and your start in the medical device industry. Can you just talk about how did you get here? How did this happen?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Connecticut, and my family has a long line of engineers.
Okay.
My grandfather was a welding engineer during World War II. So he developed a lot of welding processes for ship hulls. So he was going from like Sausalito, California to Minnetonka, Wisconsin, and Groton, Connecticut, where they build the ships and bring them to sea. So brilliant. My grandfather was a brilliant man, and my father was an electrical engineer, went to Merchant Marine Academy, and he worked for 47 years at a company called Davis Standard.
Okay.
And Davis Standard is a company in Connecticut that manufactures extrusion equipment.
Okay.
So he was an engineer for this company for 47 years, and that was kind of where everybody worked in town, in my small town of Pawcatuck, Connecticut.
Yep.
And so after I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from Wentworth Institute in Boston, I got a job at Davis Standard as a mechanical engineer designing extrusion systems.
Okay.
And there was a guy there by the name of Charlie Sparacino that did something different from everybody there. He was a salesperson, and he sold medical extrusion lines.
Okay.
And he was selling these extrusion lines to make medical tubing to Boston Scientific and Abbott and all the Medtronic and all the major MedTech firms. And I don't know why, but I just was very interested in what he was doing. And I made an effort to introduce myself to him. And he told me about what he was doing, and he was selling extrusion lines. It was really hot at the time. And I said, can I work for you? Can I be involved somehow? And so they let me come in after hours to do drawings for him, to lay out a full extrusion line with all the power requirements and water requirements to facilitate installation of a line. That was how I got my foot in the door. And at one point, he invited me to go on a meeting with him.
Okay.
My first sales meeting, I was a young mechanical engineer.
That wasn't part of the job description. This was just...
Right. This is extra. And so we went to Boston Scientific in Watertown, Massachusetts.
Wow.
Where he let me review this layout drawing with these engineers. I was nervous, but after that, I said, this is what I want to do.
The industry.
I want to get into medical, and I want to sell medical extrusion lines, just like Charlie Sparacino.
Very cool.
And so I did that for many years and worked for a company after, because they didn't want to put me in sales. So that's what happens if you're at a big company and you prove yourself. Sometimes there's not a lot of flexibility.
That's
So
right.
I left and went to a startup called American Kuna.
Okay.
And that was a company that made extruders. And I said, let me start this medical division. And I did, and it became the leading provider of medical extruders and extrusion systems in North America.
Wow.
And I was able to travel to basically every contract manufacturer and medical device OEM in North America, mainland Europe, and Asia, China, Japan, and South Korea for 15 years.
Wow.
And do all that. And I went to the K Show. That's the big machinery show in Germany every other year. It's a week long.
Yeah.
And one of my competitors was there, a company called GMAC. It's an Italian firm that makes medical extrusion equipment. And the sales or part owner of that company invited me into his booth. Very gracious, very nice gentleman. He offered me Italian coffee. And he started to go through some of the tubes that were made on their extrusion lines.
Okay.
And at the time, I was just set on mechanical extruder making tubing, not understanding the characteristics of the tubing, the stiffness, flexibility, the therapies like we went over on our webinar. And he started to go through the tubing, the characteristics, how it was flexible on the distal end and stiff on the proximal. And it's used in a cardiovascular. It's like, wow, it was such an eye-opening that he knew all the characteristics and the therapy. And I thought, we're competing with each other. He's going into the same company that I am. He's going to beat me because he just knew more.
Yeah.
I was so focused. And I set, and that gentleman, his name is Simone, that was a goal to be more knowledgeable on the materials, the functionality, and the therapy. And
love that.
And then as I did that, I became friends with a doctor, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Vishal Gupta, who started, he's a practicing interventional cardiologist, world-renowned. He does 8 procedures a day, pretty much, structural heart, and all the high-end therapies that we talk about in structural heart. And that's when I got to know really the anatomy and the therapy more and what's really important for a device.
Yeah.
And so I set out to understand the whole ecosystem from a napkin sketch to V&V to commercialization. And that was really my goal, and that's why I'm so happy the opportunity to interview or have so many people like that on the podcast to really understand metals, plastics, all the different components and subassemblies within the minimally invasive ecosystem.
It's encouraging to hear you say you have had these mentors that you, or even the competitor, you want to be, he set the standard of what you wanted it to be. And I think it's nice to have those personal touches in your career, like those kind of benchmarks of this, I had this conversation and it led to this. Yeah. I know when I first started with component supply, it was really just writing content. I had a couple children and was kind of staying at home, kind of doing some part-time stuff, trying to get my feet wet. What am I going to do? And was writing content for component supply. And Mark, we were talking about what a career might look like, what a path might be. And component supply was small. We were literally in sheds on a farm, so small. And I just couldn't see it. I had in my mind that I was going to do nonprofit kind of work or something like that. And I needed somebody to help me find the meaning behind selling medical devices, and my mom at the time was having some back issues and was about to have the surgery, and he kind of walked me through what that procedure would look like. Another friend of mine, her dad had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and he was talking about that surgery process, what that was going to look like, and how the components that we supply, how they impact those decisions, how they impact those surgeries. And it is like having that personal touch. It changed it from I'm just selling parts, I'm just selling extrusions or extruding equipment to like, this is life-changing stuff. We're going to get these stories out here. We're going to make a difference in people's lives. So I love hearing that there's been, you didn't just wake up one day and decide this is what you're going to do. Yeah. You had really important people impacting you in that way. So you got to know all these people. How did the podcast get started? You've been doing this podcast now for how many years, and how did you start?
Probably 3 years now. I was telling you how I was with this company, American Kuna, and I thought, let's get people together and have a conference to talk about different technologies. Always the curiosity, right? To get the subject matter experts together. So I started this at the time, what was called Spotlight, where we'd rent a hotel space, and get everybody together and have and everybody to go up and give kind of a PowerPoint presentation, death by PowerPoint at the time, right? And so I thought, this is interesting, this concept of getting together and sharing content, but I want to do it in a more technical, non-commercial way. And during COVID, I was talking to my friend Eric Adair, who's helped me a lot on podcasts.
I think we've met.
Yeah. And he said, I think I have an idea how we can do this without getting everybody together on a podcast. And he's the one that kind of prompted me and he got the software, and we just started doing it. Let's just wing it. And we were talking earlier about some of the first podcasts we've done. As you look back and like, whoof.
Don't watch those.
But that's how you have to just dig into it sometimes and start somewhere, and baby steps to continually improve.
Yeah, we've been, this is our second season, so we're doing a season is a year, calendar year. And I had been wanting to do it for many years. And there's a little bit of a vulnerability hangover that you have after the first time. Like pretty protective of social media with, my kids aren't in social media or things like that. I'm like, am I going to put my face everywhere? What is that going to look like? And, with the medical device community, it's such a sweet community and for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And so low risk, I felt like, but yeah, you do those first and it feels so uncomfortable to look at the camera. The very first one we did, we brought a bunch of people in because I thought that will be better if we bring some of our team in to watch it live. It was not better.
Yeah, no.
It was way worse.
Yeah, no.
So you've been doing this. So what does it look like? Do you have like certain people that you just want to interview? Does it just come up organically? How do you plan who's going to appear on the podcast? What does that look like?
It's funny that you ask that because it's in a way it gets bad kind of at this point because I'll be talking to somebody. I had a quick conversation with somebody this morning from Vivolta in Netherlands, and he was talking about this concept of textiles and covers over stent frames for it. Like, and he was talking to me. I'm like, this is a podcast.
Record.
That's how bad it can get.
Yeah.
Right? You're having just a conversation with somebody and like, I'm going to do a podcast with this guy.
Oh, I'm sure it is like that for people who manage social media content. They're like, that's the post.
Yeah.
That's the post.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty funny.
So that's part of it. And then I'm really interested in early stage devices.
Yeah.
Like what is the early stage that the big OEMs are going to develop or acquire?
Yeah.
And so I try to seek out some of those folks, the founders that have developed a novel technology. One, because it's interesting, right, the tech, and two, because they're usually the founder or the leader of a startup has to also be a good salesperson because they have to raise money. So they want to tell the story. Right. They want to tell the story about what are the unmet needs in a particular therapy, how their tech solves that unmet need, and then, kind of the secondaries, how are you getting funded and where are you on the regulatory path? So I try to seek out as well some of these founders that can share new tech platforms because they're really good at it. They do it all the time.
Yeah, it probably doesn't hurt them at all either to have the exposure, have something to show somebody that they've been interviewed, that they've explained what's going on, what their project is.
Yeah.
And then recently, I can't remember, it's been over a year now that you've been with Chamfr. Can you talk a little bit about that? That's been a little bit of a shift. Yeah,
a little bit of a shift. I got a lot of things going on. I still sell extruders systems for U.S. extruders. That's kind of the backbone, as I mentioned.
Okay.
My father being at this company for 47 years and selling extrusion lines. But in that realm of understanding and wanting to, and just being interested in the whole ecosystem and all the different components from polymer components to metallic components, marker bands, all this stuff. Chamfr offers all that.
Yeah.
And I was doing some videos of companies that are on Chamfr, like at the unboxing videos, and always mention, these parts are also available on Chamfr. So it kind of made a natural fit because I'm so interested in all things MedTech, manufacturing. But also, I knew Katie and Julie from the very beginning. Okay. And actually, Katie called me when she was just getting started and said, here's this concept that we have, this Amazon-type platform for MedTech. Do you know anybody that sells extrusions that might want to get on? And I gave them a couple names, one of which was a company called GenX in Chattanooga, which was literally just starting, and they kind of rode the wave of Chamfr.
Yeah.
The owner, Tyler Ware, great friend of mine, eventually sold and just grew that business mainly and partially because of Chamfr. So
that's awesome.
That's just kind of a natural fit for me.
Yeah, it seems very natural. It was not really a surprise. I know you had Julie, I think, on, and she kind of was like, "You should come work for Chamfr," and so that was fun to watch, and you could just tell that was going to be a good fit. I love that you interview so many different people, even at the shows. We were talking before we started podcasting that it's impossible to talk to everybody that you want to talk to at the trade show. So if I miss somebody, I get excited if you are able to interview them. It's almost, I don't get to go to their booth necessarily. I'm manning mine most of the time, but you do get a good glimpse of that. When you go to a trade show and you're going to be interviewing someone, what are the things that you want to find out? You only have a short time because you're interviewing so many. What do you want that conversation to look like? What do you want people that are watching it to know?
That's a good question. You kind of have to keep it high level and short and to the point, right? It might be a minute or 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Within that time, tell me what this technology is and what are the benefits, or how does it solve some of the unmet needs in the space right now. So it's really, because I'm so interested in the tech, it's usually a tech platform.
Yeah. No, it's always great. So you're investigating tech with different organizations that you're either podcasting them or you're interviewing with them. So you get kind of the inside scoop, whether it's a sourcing team, because you do that, and then the engineering side. What is the biggest disconnect, do you think, between engineering and like supply chain? And to maybe clarify further, I know Mark went to MPP, and I know we talk about this all the time. If we can have the conversation early, we get so excited about having the napkin drawing conversation early, but it's actually quite hard to do that. There's a willingness on the manufacturing side to have that conversation early. But I think there's a hesitancy maybe on the engineering side. What do you think drives that disconnect?
That's a good question. I was in Minnesota last week, and I had a meeting with a few people within an R&D group. And you'd be surprised. We talk about, I've done 100 podcasts and got MPP. A group of engineers, R&D engineers, had no idea what MPP was. Had no idea, had ever heard of MedTech Unbox podcast.
Even though you have 25,000 followers on LinkedIn, it's crazy.
Weren't even aware of Chamfr.
No way.
It's like, I thought Chamfr just sold tubing and all these different features. So part of it, I don't know what it is that they're not allowed to get out there as much. MPP Minnesota is in Maple Grove, Minnesota. You drive by SciMed, the Boston Sci, huge mammoth facility. You literally drive by there. You know how many people I've had from Boston Sci at that facility at MPP done it to? 0.
Really?
Yeah. So there's still a huge disconnect with a certain portion of MedTech that is not getting this information, not only from MPP and Chamfr, but think about all the other things that they might not be aware of.
Oh, well, just from a component standpoint, component supply, we're not, we don't have that breadth that you have, right? We don't have that exposure that you have. However, we've been servicing some of these OEMs, engineering teams, contract manufacturers for years and years and years. Oh, we've always done same-day shipping. You place your order by 2 p.m. Central, we will ship the same day. We had someone that we have been supplying for years contact us at 1. Hey, I placed this order online. I really need it to ship today. And we're like, yes, it will ship today. Did you not know we shipped today? Even within the organization, doing the business, marketing it the way we do, or people who have been buying hypodermic tubing from us for years and years and years don't know we make the needle. It is just, I don't know, perhaps they're very busy. I believe that's very true. They're dealing with trials. They're dealing with deadlines and things. And someone has to let them get out there into the wild and learn and see what's out there. But it is an interesting disconnect because there is a willingness. You see it with every interview I hear. We want to have the conversation early. We're willing to talk with you. Just talk to us. And then crickets, right, from the engineering side. So hopefully as we continue to grow and as we continue to collaborate, we can kind of bridge that gap. We're bridging the gap between R&D and production. Can we bridge the gap in communication between the manufacturing teams that really want to collaborate with you, really want to make your life easier from an R&D perspective, but we know you're really busy. How do we bridge that gap? So that's pretty interesting. Because you have interviewed so many different teams, different organizations, different teams, what is something that strikes you from teams that really have it together? This is a really good company to work for. They're producing really great things. What about their culture maybe have you discovered that sticks out to you?
There's some really great organizations out there with really incredible capabilities. But why do these great engineers leave?
Oh,
right?
That's the question.
Why do you have a group of engineers, each with 20 plus years of experience, suddenly leave an organization that built all from the groundwork up? a lot of it, in some cases, has to do with the M&A activity within the space. There's a lot of good that comes from that. Private equity investment, you bring on more capabilities, more capital to invest. A lot of times a private equity firm will say, let's make sure you have enough capability for 2 times what you'll need going forward. So there's a lot of opportunities. But for some reason or another, the culture from a family-run or lifestyle-run organization suddenly being acquired and having all these different, in some cases, bureaucratic rules or whatever it might be, a lot of people aren't interested in that. And so the culture is huge. You cannot afford to lose those people in this industry. That's the biggest bottleneck in our industry, is the access to highly skilled workforce.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we partner with Tennessee Tech, that's in the neighboring city, Cookeville, and we have we're in a very small town, as you saw, and we have high school that we work with, because we feel like that investment in the next generation is so important. What's going to happen when someone can't make that tool? What's going to happen just from a tool and die making or operator perspective, let alone more advanced engineering? It's so critical. But then, yes, how then, as you grow and you gain capital and you expand your capabilities, can you keep that investment that you've made? How do you see, you've been in the industry for a long time, so you have these new incoming engineers that maybe don't have the same experience as some of the people that maybe mentored you or motivated you early on. Do you see differences in whether it's in how they're using technology or in how they're learning? What is the difference between the kind of newer engineer and the ones that are kind of engineering veterans?
That's a good question. There's kind of 2 sides to that story. One is, as we were talking a little bit, alluded to earlier, about sometimes you can't get on the phone or have a conversation with that young engineer.
Right.
It's like you send them an email, hey, I'm going to be in town, you want to meet to go over? It's like, you want to meet with me? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's so true.
I was talking to a great friend of mine who sells balloon technologies, as well as selling them through Chamfr. And one of the things with Chamfr, it's lead generation.
Right.
You sell a balloon to a major MedTech OEM, the salesperson follows up. It's transparent. It's like, hey, I noticed you bought all these compliant balloons. What are you up to? Can I help you? Do you need something more custom? It's like, I make these calls, and nobody calls me back. It's like they're not interested, but they'll order another balloon variation and don't get it right, where you could have had a 5-minute conversation.
It's good to know. It's not just us.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating
that's
to
real.
everybody.
It's so hard. Yeah.
On the other hand, I was invited by a friend, Matt Penny, who was a professor at NC State.
Okay.
And there's a program, a master's degree program for medical device engineering. Okay. And there's 3 different cohorts, groups, and they invited me and a few other industry experts to listen to them, to share the technology platform that they're working on, and to give input on how they could change some things and to make it better or more manufacturable. And I was amazed how these groups of students were so comfortable speaking in front of industry experienced people like myself. Tilak Shaw, I don't know if you know him, the founder of PolyZen was one, brilliant man, and just so comfortably just articulating the technology and the benefits and the challenges and taking that feedback. And one of the things, I hooked him up with a bunch, and some of the suppliers on Chamfr hooked him up with a bunch of components as a result of that. But so I was really happy to see how engaged they were and how articulate and super smart. And this is the next generation.
I know, let's hope. I mean, because those devices, we're going to be using them, right?
Yeah, so there's kind of the 2-sided story there. On one side of the challenge, that's like, it's hard to communicate. But on the other side, there's some brilliant students, the next generation, that are working on getting educated to be the next pioneers in this industry.
And I think sometimes, I think that's absolutely true. There are 2 sides. And I wonder sometimes if some of the hesitancy or the lack of confidence. I mean, there's like nature nurture, right,
Yeah.
going on. Maybe if they have more mentorship, some of that confidence building, I know I've had that here at Component Supply. I hope my people here have felt that maybe they came in a little nervous, maybe a little shy, maybe a little uncertain, because we have so many components. You have to kind of be jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
And in the shop, you see a different drawing every day. It's not like you're on the line doing the same thing. And I hope that the environment breeds that confidence, that maybe those people that aren't willing to take the meeting, aren't willing to take the phone call, that someone like the people that you've mentioned will pour into them, challenge them, and that will move. In a couple years from now, they'll be the ones sitting on your podcast telling you about some technology where before they were too nervous to take a meeting or didn't have time or had some excuse. So I hope that continues to change. I do think it's so important. I see a lot of this. I see, Katie go into her alma mater to talk, and, trying to invest we're all trying to invest in our local schools. And I think we need to give students the next generation opportunities to practice, like you said before, we talked about the early podcasts, you're a little nervous, it's a little uncomfortable. You have to give room for failure in a safe space, whether that's your R&D engineer or kind of the non-STEM track in medical device. We talk a lot. There's a seat at the table for everyone in MedTech. There are a lot of different personalities. I don't have a STEM, I'm not an engineer. I don't have a STEM background at all, but I wouldn't want to work in any other industry. And so I think some of it is presenting that encouragement to even the non-STEM folks. We need you, actually.
Absolutely.
We need you to communicate in this way. We need you to help us source. We need all these pieces, and maybe some of the lack of confidence is just not knowing where you fit in the industry.
That's a good point. There's so many opportunities for great people, talented people. And you don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to have an engineering degree, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Some of the most successful entrepreneurs, owners in this industry that I know have done very well for themselves are high school educated.
Yeah. I think it's so true. I see that when I look at our shop. I see that when I'm in other organizations. I mentioned this recently. I love this book by Surbi Sarna, without a doubt. And she, had Envision and sold this catheter product to Boston Scientific for an ungodly amount of money. Like, fantastic. Woman owned, all the things that, especially a decade ago, less common. And she talks about the operators with the magical hands. Like, she mentions one in particular, and he was not college educated, not formally an engineer, but made the biggest difference, made the biggest impact. And I think about that with our team. We've got lots of magical hands out there that are doing these incredible things. It is one thing to design it on paper, but someone has to make that part. And so it's really cool to be able to value different aspects. And I agree with you. I think there's great things that can happen from that formal college setting. But there's nothing like on-the-job experience and how to get that. So if someone wants to start in the MedTech industry, you've got a recent college graduate or even a high school graduate, how can they get started? What do you recommend from everything that you've seen? How do we get the next generation going in our industry?
I want to get the word out about that, and that's why I try to align myself, in some cases, to these MPPs with UMass Lowell in Massachusetts. UMass Lowell, or ULowell, as many people have come to know, it was the predominant plastics engineering program in the USA, and so many leaders of MedTech companies and just plastics processing companies are UMass Lowell graduates. And I reached out to somebody there and I said, hey, I want to do this MPP event there. Do you have space? And with open arms, yes, come on, we need your help, actually. We used to have 60 people enrolled in plastics engineering, and now with the negativity with plastics, we get like 12.
Gotcha.
So, okay, let's have these events there and get people there and get some students involved. And I think it's really important to kind of give back a little, as much as you can, and try to get the younger generation more enthusiastic about MedTech. These are good jobs, high-paying jobs in a good environment, right?
Yeah.
They mostly all have a nice cafeteria. It's a clean environment. And a lot of these MedTech firms, I've been to companies that say that like they have 100 openings.
That's nuts.
Yeah. For years, Cook Medical has had massive openings for engineers and technicians and
Yeah.
quality people, and that goes with so many other MedTech OEMs and contract manufacturers. There's a need for motivated, highly skilled people to get involved. And back to this education thing, starting off as a tech or an operator, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
these
absolutely
people,
not.
these examples that I gave you of these highly successful serial entrepreneurs that have started multiple companies and maybe sold them, started again. I gave you examples. They started off as a tech, an
Yeah.
operator,
Yeah.
or a mechanic, right?
Yeah.
So
That's one of the things we look for when we're hiring for component supply is just, do you have an interest in like working with your
Yeah,
hands?
yeah.
I'd read a study a while back about the difficulty that medical schools were having because of swipe technology.
Yeah.
The students weren't able to perform sutures, right? Like they had lost the dexterity of their
Yeah.
hands. So if I see someone and they, have worked with their hands before, I don't care what industry, like we can make it work
Yep.
if you have the interest and you have the drive and the willingness there. So I think there's more than you think that's out
Yeah.
there, right? Whether it's a large firm that has 100 openings or it's you're small, like where you started in a smaller town, and component supply is in a smaller town. There sometimes that lends itself to a lot of great investment because there's flexibility there. So
Yes.
whether it's you need lots of options or you need lots of personal investment to grow, there's so many options out there, and it's exciting to think about how as we share about these things. If you're an engineer, if you're a technician, the sky's the limit with what you can do. There are so many opportunities out there. I know we're kind of needing to wrap up a little bit, but if there was one thing that you could share about either your history or the future of MedTech, what would you share?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
It's probably too broad.
I think curiosity, asking questions, reaching out to people. I reach out to people cold all the time that I don't know. And
Yeah.
say, hey, can you have a conversation? I'll give you an example. I was really interested a couple of years ago in expanded PTFE
Okay.
for coverings on stents. I didn't know anything about it, the manufacturing process, what it's used for, but I was really interested and I wanted to learn more. So I did a Google search and I found a couple patents from a company called Philips Scientific.
Okay.
It's like, what is this company? So I just did, okay, where are they located? Oh, wow, they're 45 minutes south of me.
No way.
Yeah. So I just cold called, and the owner picked up the phone. I said, I'm really interested in learning more, and I just thought I'd call you. He's like, well, come on down. Okay. He invited me, and it was a small company in a pole barn startup, but he was showing me these different expanded PTFE samples and the whole process of ram extruding the PTFE and orientating it, and the machine direction, orientating it in the opposite direction to get really strong properties, and the sintering, and there was all these different little boxes of samples, and it said Edwards and Medtronic. I'm like, you're doing work with all these? So just by
Out of a pole barn.
yeah, exactly.
Nuts.
He can't scale because of that, but just from being interested in doing a simple search and just calling somebody,
Yeah.
I was able to, and he gave me, I've been there like multiple times and I've learned so much. So be interested and reach out. Feel free to reach out to people.
Yeah.
People want to share
They do.
their stories, their tech platforms with people.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
If you're not already, connect with Steve on LinkedIn and watch his interviews, watch the unboxings. Let your curiosity get piqued every time you open LinkedIn or open YouTube, and you'll find something that you can take with you into your next device design or just general company information. So thank you so much, Steve, for being on. It's been a pleasure.
That's been great. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's go change the world.